Hello and welcome to Ryvid. In this video, I'll be showing you how to replace the motor on your Ryvid Anthem. Let's get started. So now that we have our seat, belt cover, and the rear is lifted, we're ready to continue with the Anthem's electric motor removal. Next thing we're removing are the side panels. They're held in by four 4mm hex bolts. Remove the P-clamp from the license plate harness and slide the harness through the swing arm. To remove the foot peg bracket, we're going to have 3 T30 bolts, 2 in the front and 1 on the back side. On the right side, do not forget to disconnect the brake sensor. Because we've already removed the rear caliper, the removal of the right side foot peg bracket is the same as the left side. Before removing the shock guard, it's a lot easier having the rear wheel removed. Now we can remove our shock guard. If you are replacing just the motor, I'm going to show you how to remove the sprocket to be reused on your new motor. Got a 13mm socket and an impact. Now just pull your sprocket straight out. So now we move on to our upper shock bolt. It's a 6mm hex. Now we're moving on to our lower shock bolts. 17mm socket, 5mm hex. Before pulling the swing arm, it's important to undo the motor harness. Now we're moving on to the swing arm pivot pin. We're going to be using a 27mm socket, 11mm hex. This is going to be very tight. They're torqued to 90 foot-pounds. After removing the nut, I'm going to grab my mallet and a punch. I'm going to carefully tap the swing arm pivot pin. But before doing that, I'm going to bring in a second pair of hands to help me. He's now going to pull out the pivot pin. Carefully pull the motor harness through the frame. Tilt the swing arm up and slide it back. To separate the swing arm from the motor, we have 6 T40. For the right side, we repeat the same steps, 6 T40 bolts. We've successfully now removed our motor. Let's replace it with a new one and put it all back together. When installing these bolts, we recommend you use blue Loctite. When you install the right side, it's important to run the kickstand sensor, run the harness through the inside of this circle. It comes out at the top. Make sure it's not pinched. When tightening these bolts, it's important to go with a star pattern. Now that our bolts are properly hand tight, we're going to torque them down to 18 foot-pounds. Again, it's important to follow the star pattern. So repeat the same step on the right side. So now that the swing arm and motor is back together, we're going to install it back to the frame. To help me with that, I'm going to bring in the second pair of hands again. After carefully routing the harness through the frame, make sure not to pinch any wires or connectors. Carefully slide the swing arm pivot bolt through the frame. Gently drop the swing arm and let it rest. Reinstall the nut to the pivot pin and torque it to 90 foot-pounds. For this next step, I'm going to take a flathead and put a little notch right here. Now connect your kickstand sensor. Next, connect your motor harness. Now we're going to install our front sprocket. Make sure the area is greased. Slide it in, get your bolt, red Loctite. .13mm socket. And we'll come back to torque it in a bit. Take your license plate harness and send it through the swing arm. To install the shock, it's important to carefully guide it up through the shock bracket. Now grab your lower shock bolt with the washer. Grab your washer and nut. 5mm hex, 17mm socket. Now torque this to 7 foot-pounds. So now we're going to install the top shock bolts. Note that it's important to use blue Loctite for this one. Torque the top bolt to 4 foot-pounds. Now carefully reinstall your shock cover. Before installing your P-clamps, let's put the rear wheel on. Now install your left side swing arm P-clamps. Now we're back on the right side. We're going to install the right foot peg bracket. Now connect your rear brake plug. Now install your right side P-clamp to the shock guard. Now with the help of the rear brake, we're going to torque the front sprocket. 32 foot-pounds. After the belt's been tuned, we're going to torque down the rear axle to 65 foot-pounds. If you're noticing that you're blocking the cotter pin hole, it's okay to torque it a little bit higher to clear the hole, so you have access to insert the cotter pin. Like that. Now insert your cotter pin and bend it. So now we've installed our new Ryvid Anthem motor. You can learn more about the Anthem by scanning the QR code on the inside of the storage tank lid. If you need further assistance, please email us at service@ryvid.com. You can also find us online by going to ryvid.com. Thank you.